my mother.
Welcome to Happiness and the City. This is Barbara, and today I'd like us to think about a very important concept, and that is the concept of content. There's a different meaning of the word with the same spelling, to be content, and we'll be talking about this. But today I want to talk about the meaning of the word of contents of a shape. We talked about image and a shape a few weeks ago. And now I'd like to focus our attention on what is the content of an image, or what is content of a shape. This is a very vital matter. Today we have a huge conflict within the government of the United States about the meaning of the content in reference to what are the contents of the United States of America. And it manifests in this desire to have a fence, border wall created over that situation with contents. However, the discussions about borders are disconnected from discussions about contents of America. What is it that needs to be restrained by a fence? So the situation is very strange, because borders can contain nothing, or they can stop content from connecting with contents in other countries, in other shapes. It can limit the contents of an image. So I think that we should stop worrying about the fence until we have clarity over what is the current set of contents in the United States of America. We have a commandment about contents. In divine law, there is a great importance put by God Himself to the matters of a house and contents of the house. In fact, divine law forbids coveting of contents of your neighbor's house. So not only the house, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's house, nor anything that is within it. So within divine law, we have clarity over the importance of contents. So the country is a form of a house. So that would also include our need to use divine law to shield the contents of America. But we cannot do it unless we know what they are currently. Another important thing is that we need to know the difference between divine law and civil law. Many of you don't know that, and you end up entrapped in all kinds of misfortunes, all kinds of emptiness, and a form of being bare in search for justice, because God will not help repair something that is against His law, His divine law. A lot of wonderful things started happening in my life when I stopped worrying that much about what other types of law said, and I just focused on divine law, and that ensured that I get help from God, because He is very pleased to help me within His jurisdiction. and he doesn't like to help me within the context of jurisdictions from other forces or other gods. So before we understand what is the nature of contents of the United States that need to be shielded by borders, we have to do it from perspective of divine law first, and then look at other types of laws like universal law, natural law, and civil law. Natural law is very important. God always aligns his law with natural law, but he can override many limits of natural law. I was telling you about my story, how I was injured and medically nothing could be done, and God came in and restored his shape within me. However, when he did that, it was 20 years ago, he asserted his will that I have to follow his understanding of what contents of my life are. So that was the beginning of my wisdom about that relationship between divine law and house and contents of the house from perspective of kingdom of God. In the United States of America, we have heritage that spans hundreds of years. So we have contents of America that developed throughout many generations, and the only thing that connects and unites all of that heritage is the fact that America was founded on divine law first. Some people like to ignore that, and then they get into a lot of trouble. But this is what it is. Divine law means he includes all his people in it, and then orders the houses according to his will and his understanding of what the diversity of houses are. So we have to look at America as a country that started existence by grace of divine will, and then it developed over hundreds of years, and now is a magnificent, majestic country with huge territory from the Atlantic Sea to the Pacific Sea. We have also Alaska, and we have connections to people all over the world. Hundreds of countries are in relationships with the United States of America. So we have contemporary contents of America that are very different from what happened at the beginning of the founding of America. America was first founded as a colony, then it developed into Commonwealth, and now really America is empire because of the complexity of the authority that is used over diverse people that inhabit America. And this is very important to understand. We have a country that is not like a country 200 years ago that was created primarily on Anglo-Saxon American influence. Today, America is a complicated empire that has residents from diverse cultures, and it is a fact. It is a fact. So we have to adjust, shape an image of America to this contemporary situation. We cannot go back. And this is essential for us to understand before we put any limits on the image or on the shape. Because if we create limits in the shape and image of America based on what happened hundreds of years ago, it will suffocate the contents of current America. We have to have this sophisticated knowledge about what is current America and simply accept it just the way it is. That's what I did. I accepted America in its modern form, and I created peace in my heart over the fact it is a diverse country. And the way to deal with the diversity of modern America is we have to understand the concept of the shape of an empire and how to shield and secure and organize contents within empire. America is not a colony. It was Commonwealth. It is a form of Commonwealth, but it is Commonwealth with imperial shape because of its diversity. So America is a nation state different from nation states Europe, like Germany or Belgium. America is a nation state that within the contents of the nation has diverse people unified by the fact that they are living in the United States of America. So it is a different shape of nation state than in traditional nation states. And I think that when we start focusing on the importance of understanding the contents of a country first, then we'll be able to see what needs to be protected by borders and what needs to be open to connections and relationships with other country and freedom. So I would stop for now discussions about the border and instead focus on the contents of America. America is a huge country and it needs people. So we shouldn't treat it as a colony that had limited number of people, but we should have this vision of peace of America as a country that can sustain large population. And I would focus on organizing residents of the United States today first, and keeping borders as territorial boundaries as the shape of a country that needs to care, nurture, and nourish those who live within her borders. So my focus would be on what is within the borders of a country and how to nurture, nourish it, how to care for everybody here, how to make sure that people have places to live, food, they can live their lifespans, they have peace in their hearts, they have tranquility. That would be my focus. My focus would not be on borders of the shape, but would be on contents of what is within America. I think that America has vast multidimensional systems of securities, and people defend themselves pretty well from all kinds of dangers from outside. So I wouldn't worry about it. America is an armed nation. People have millions and millions of guns, and American police is armed. We have armed military. America is loaded with weapons. So we do have weapons of defense. And that is one of the reasons we haven't been invaded, because those who do it, they know that the response from within America, so from contents of America, would be mind-boggling, swift, powerful, and would defeat any enemy who would like to do that. So I would rather focus on that kind of security and create openness and passages to have immigrants to come to America, because we need people. We need people who can build the strength of this huge continent. And I think that the atmosphere that frightens people away from coming here is not fortunate. It disrupts the flow of harmonious interactions of all the aspects of the contents of the United States of America. There's another aspect of contents. Contents is not only the internal territories, the buildings, the infrastructures, but today we have global companies, we have multinational corporations that involve relationships with many other countries. And that is also contents of the United States of America. So if someone would try to block that, you block enormous wealth coming into the United States and developing within the United States, so you would create enormous damage for the wealth of this country. Damage that no illegal immigrants from Mexico would even imagine possible. Because the immigration from Mexico concerns people who primarily deal with small businesses. But restraining the liberty of the United States of America's contents to move freely throughout the world would create multi-trillion-dollar damage to this country, to contents of this country, to wealth of people who are involved with those companies. So do the mathematics. Why would you want to restrain the contents of the United States of America because of fear of some illegal immigrants? That just doesn't make any sense. So now we are coming to the key point, and that is what law should shield the contents of the United States of America first. And I think that that spirit of fear that right now has been making a lot of damage in political conversations is the problem. And that spirit of fear comes from punishment. It comes from civil laws. It doesn't come from God, because God gave us spirit of love, spirit of power, and spirit of sound mind. So in order to remedy this situation, we have to first ask God to give us His spirit of love and His spirit of power and His spirit of sound mind to deal with all matters of the shape, image, and contents of the United States of America. Once we have that primacy of law of God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, then we can have clarity over other laws that shape the relationships between those people who are within the United States of America and those who are outside, and also the nature and content of immigration. Because if we deal with immigration from the spirit of fear, there will be never satisfaction. But if we deal with the entire situation of contents of the United States of America within God's spirit of love, we'll have a completely different perspective on this. We'll have God's perceptions and God's eyes to guide us through it, and also we'll have divine time to show us how to organize schedules around all the matters connected with management of contents of the United States of America. So I think this is a much wiser approach, and I encourage you to go this way. In every state, in every company, in every governmental institution, just be free from that spirit of fear. The relationship between divine law and civil law is very important. The natural law and universal law of different type. We cannot change natural law. We have 5 fingers on each hand. You know biology, you know the nature of natural law. That's shape and content and image of God's creation. So it is His realm to shape that. Universal law is law of karma and fortunes and all kinds of things connected with universal law. They have influence on us, and God can override some of their verdicts, but they are not within the grasp and power of human beings without God's presence. They are more powerful than us if we don't have God on our side. So this is another incentive for us to have primacy of divine law. Civil laws is a realm where civil laws are in alignment with divine law, but some of them want to defy God. What God calls virtue, some civil laws call sin or evil. What God calls good, some civil laws call evil. Communism was atheistic. Communism was civil law that wanted to get rid of any mention of God. So civil law was clash between civil law of communism was clash between human civil law and God's law and God Himself. Therefore, communism collapsed because it couldn't withstand divine judgments. And in this current atmosphere of lawmaking, I encourage you to spend more time meditating on the meaning and wisdom and love of divine law before you put civil laws in place that will incur God's anger. It's just not worth it. You don't want to experience His anger for somebody trying to put their wills above God's will. And if we understand this principle, the entire functioning of the government will become easier, because people would not have to fight the internal forces that are against them and that they cannot defeat. So one of the ways to bring about victory in tranquility and peaceful coexistence between all people in the United States and between America and all the other countries is to have knowledge about that relationship between divine law and civil law. It is not taught in law schools at all, but it used to be. People just are focusing on rules and regulations and lawmaking in a very drunken way, as if there is no tomorrow and there is no consequences for instance, taking someone's business or making somebody bankrupt by very restraining laws, destroying someone's intergenerational wealth because of jealousy and envy, destroying whole regions by creating such restraining civil laws that people cannot do business within the state, restraining all kinds of international trades, looking at success of a company and trying to destroy it by fining that company billions of dollars just because they have it, not because they deserve to be punished, but there's some civil law rulers that decide to use the civil law as a form of armed robbery. That angers God too. Civil law should be made to create peace between diverse people and to create peace within the contents of America, but they shouldn't be used to impose and enforce government authority in order to deprive another person of the contents of their house, their businesses, bank accounts.